My wife is perfect in every way. The problem is, ever since we got married, it's felt like there's a wall of glass between us. I couldn't take it anymore. I secretly drew up the divorce papers. That's when a few lines of text floated in front of my eyes. Dude, don't do it. She's only acting distant cause she's scared you can't handle the truth. I mean, who wouldn't be freaked out? After all, she gets jealous of that little green snake you keep, even though she is one herself. Sigh. Too bad she's too scared to tell him she's a snake spirit. I just stared at the empty air, completely frozen. My wife, Laura, is perfect in every way. It's just that after we got married, it's always felt like there's a wall of glass between us. We met on a dating app, dated for 6 months, and have now been married for 3 years. She's gentle, thoughtful, and runs our home perfectly. To everyone else, she's the ideal wife. But only I know that something is wrong with our relationship. I can't quite put my finger on it. She never argues with me. She never shows her true feelings. When I'm happy, she smiles. When I'm down, she also smiles. Always gentle, always graceful. Like a flawless porcelain doll. I started to wonder if she even loved me at all. Maybe she was just looking for a suitable person to build a life with. The thought was like a snowball, growing bigger and bigger until it was an avalanche. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. After work today, I secretly drafted the divorce papers. I tucked them into the innermost pocket of my laptop bag. I was just waiting for the right moment to lay my cards on the table. The drive home was a mess of emotions. Part of me felt relief, another part guilt. After all, Laura hadn't done anything wrong. She just didn't love me. I opened the front door, and the smell of dinner hit me immediately. Laura came out of the kitchen, wearing an apron, her smile as perfect as ever. You're home. Go wash up, dinner's ready. I mumbled not daring to look her in the eye. The table was set with all my favorites: roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, and a mushroom soup. She served me my plate, her movements meticulous and caring. Tough day at work? She asked softly. It was fine, I said, keeping my eyes on my food. Silence settled over us. The only sound was the clinking of our forks against the plates. That familiar, suffocating feeling was back. I started eating faster, just wanting the meal to be over. Slow down, you'll choke, she said, passing me the bowl of soup. I took it from her, our fingers brushing for a second. Hers were ice cold. It was the middle of summer, but her hands were always cold. I didn't think much of it and took a sip of soup. It was delicious, up to her usual high standard. But tonight, I couldn't taste a thing. My mind was consumed by the divorce papers in my bag. After dinner, I offered to do the dishes. I needed to keep busy to hide how guilty I felt. Laura was in the living room watching TV with the volume turned way down. After I finished in the kitchen, I dried my hands and headed for my home office. As I passed the living room, I glanced at her. She was curled up on the sofa, hugging her knees, staring at the screen. Her eyes were vacant, like she wasn't really watching anything, more like she was just lost in thought. Her silhouette looked so small, so fragile. My heart softened for a moment. Maybe I should try again. The thought popped into my head, but I crushed it just as quickly. I've tried for 3 years. Wasn't that enough? You can't force some things. I took a deep breath and walked in my office. I opened my laptop, pretending to work. Inside, I was just trying to figure out how to start the conversation. Should I just be direct? That felt too cruel. Be subtle? She might not get the hint. I agonized over it as the hours ticked by. At 10 o'clock, Laura knocked on the door. Cole, it's time for bed. I answered her and shut down the computer. When I stood up, the room spun for a second. Probably just stress. I walked out of the office, and Laura was standing in the doorway. She was wearing a silk nightgown that highlighted her slender figure. Under the soft light, her skin looked almost translucent. She looked at me, her expression gentle. You look pale. Are you feeling okay? I shook my head. I'm fine. We walked to the bedroom, one behind the other. Like always, we got ready for bed separately, and then laid down on our respective sides. A good foot of space between us. This was our normal, sharing a bed, but living in different worlds. I closed my eyes, ready for sleep. The thought of the divorce kept circling in my head. I really couldn't live like this. Maybe I should just tell her tomorrow. Better to rip the Band-Aid off. Having made up my mind, I turned to face her. Laura, The words died in my throat, because I saw something impossible. A few lines of translucent text were floating in the air in front of me. like comments on a live stream, but only I could see them. Dude, don't do it. She's only acting distant cause she's scared you can't handle the truth. I froze, blinking hard. The words were still there. It wasn't a hallucination. I mean, who wouldn't be freaked out? After all, she gets jealous of that little green snake you keep, even though she is one herself. Sigh. Too bad she's too scared to tell him she's a snake spirit. I stared at the empty space, my brain completely short-circuiting. What protagonist? What snake spirit? Jade? Laura noticed I was acting weird. Cole, what's wrong? She asked softly. I snapped back to reality and looked at her. Her eyes were full of genuine concern. But those words, was this some kind of prank? Or was I having a mental breakdown? And nothing. I managed a weak smile. Just really tired. I think I'm seeing things. Laura reached out and placed her hand on my forehead. Still cold. You don't have a fever. Do you want to go to the doctor? No, I just need some sleep. I rolled over, turning my back to her. My mind was a hurricane. What did those words mean? Laura is a snake spirit. That's ridiculous, but the text mentioned Jade. Jade is my pet garter snake. She's a vibrant green, gentle, and beautiful. And it's true, Laura has never liked her. She always keeps her distance whenever she sees the terrarium. I always thought she was just afraid of snakes. But now, was it jealousy? Impossible. I forced myself to calm down. I've just been under too much pressure lately. It has to be a hallucination. Yeah, that's it. I took a deep breath, trying to will myself to sleep. But the words were seared into my brain, especially that last line. Too bad she's too scared to tell him she's a snake spirit. A snake spirit. I started thinking about little details. Laura never wears short sleeves in the summer, says she burns easily, but her skin is always pale, never tanned. Her body temperature is always low. Even in a heat wave, her hands and feet are cool. In low light, I've sometimes thought her pupils looked a little off. And her diet. She eats very light, almost never touching hot food. I always just chalked it up to personal habits. But now, no, I can't let my imagination run wild. There's no such thing as spirits in this world. I shook my head, trying to banish the absurd thought. The next morning, I woke up to find Laura had already made breakfast. I watched her carefully. Her movements were normal, her expression natural. She was the same as always. Those words, they must have been a hallucination. I breathed a sigh of relief, but part of me felt a strange sense of disappointment. If she really was a snake spirit, at least it would explain her distance. At least it wouldn't be because she didn't love me. The thought shocked me. I would rather my wife be a monster than admit she didn't love me. Pathetic. Before leaving for work, I went to the sunroom to check on Jade like I always do. Jade was coiled up in her glass tank, looking lazy. When she saw me, she lifted her head and flicked her tongue. I reached out to touch the glass. Laura's voice came from behind me. Cole, you're going to be late. Her tone was sharp, with a hint of nervousness I couldn't miss. I turned around. She was standing in the doorway, her eyes darting around. She really did look jealous. A thought sparked in my mind, and I decided to push it. Just a second. I turned back to Jade, tapping my finger against the glass. Jade slithered over, following my fingertip. Laura's voice came again, more urgent this time. Cole. I looked back at her. Her face was pale. Her hands were clenched into tight fists, her knuckles white. Was she really jealous? The discovery sent a thrill through me. I put down the feeding tongs and walked toward her. Okay, I'm going. She let out a quiet breath, her expression returning to normal. But I could still see a flicker of panic in her eyes. As I was leaving, she hesitated. What? What do you want for dinner tonight? Whatever. Anything you make is delicious. I smiled and kissed her on the forehead. She flinched for a second, a light blush creeping up her ears. She used to react like that when we first met. It hadn't happened in a long time. On my way to work, I couldn't stop thinking. What if those words were real? What if Laura really was a snake spirit? What would I do? Be scared? Run away? Or accept it? I was completely distracted all day at the office. My mind was just a loop of Laura and Jade. On the way home, I stopped at a flower shop and bought a bouquet of lilies. Laura loves lilies. I used to buy them for her all the time, but as things got colder between us, I just stopped. Today, I wanted to try. When I got home, Laura was busy in the kitchen. She froze when she saw the flowers. What's the occasion? No occasion, I said, handing them to her. Just passed the shop and thought they looked nice. She took them, lowered her head, and smelled them. The corners of her mouth turned up in a slight, genuine smile. Thank you. It was still a smile, but it felt more real than usual. My heart fluttered. Maybe those words weren't nonsense after all. During dinner, I deliberately brought up Jade. I changed Jade's bedding today. She seems really comfortable. Laura's chopsticks paused mid-air. Oh, her reaction was flat, but I saw her fingers tighten. Do you think snakes have feelings? I continued, probing. Jade seems to recognize me. She always comes over when she sees me. Laura kept her head down, focused on her food. Maybe, she mumbled. All animals have a spirit, I said, watching her closely. Who knows? Maybe one day, she'll even turn into a person. Clatter. Laura's chopsticks fell from her hand. She bent down to pick them up, her movements flustered. What's wrong? I asked, feigning innocence. Nothing, she said, her fingers trembling as she picked up the chopsticks. My hand slipped. My suspicion grew deeper. After dinner, I suggested we go for a walk. Laura seemed hesitant. It's still hot out. It's cooled down now, I insisted. We haven't gone for a walk together in ages. She finally agreed. Our neighborhood has a lot of green space, and plenty of people were out for an evening stroll. We walked side by side, maintaining a polite distance. Like most married couples, calm and unremarkable. But I knew something had changed. Those words were like seeds sprouting in my mind. As we passed a small bamboo grove, Laura suddenly stopped. Snake, she said, her voice tight, pointing into the trees. I followed her gaze and saw a small green snake, the same kind as Jade, slithering through the undergrowth. It's okay. It's not venomous, I reassured her. Laura's face was pale, and she ducked behind me. Her reaction was way over the top. You're afraid of snakes? I asked. Yeah. You're afraid of Jade too? Yeah. She kept her head down, refusing to look at me. I looked at the delicate line of her neck and suddenly remembered the words from last night. Laura, I asked softly, is there anything you're hiding from me? Her whole body went rigid. No. Really? I took a step closer. We're married. We should be honest with each other. She backed away until her back was against a bamboo stalk. Cole, what's gotten into you today? Her eyes darted around, wary, like a cornered animal. I felt a pang of guilt, but I had to know the truth. I just feel like something's on your mind, I said, softening my tone. You can tell me. Whatever it is, I can handle it. And I meant it. If she really was some kind of spirit, I think I could accept it. After all, I loved her. The realization surprised even me. Turns out, I never stopped loving her. I was just hurt by her coldness, and that's why I wanted to run away. Laura looked at me, her expression a mix of emotions. Struggle, fear, and a tiny sliver of hope. Cole, just as she was about to speak, one of our neighbors walked by. Out for a walk? Yep, I said with a friendly wave. By the time the neighbor was gone, the moment was lost. Laura had composed herself. Let's go back. The mosquitoes are coming out. She turned and started walking home. Her back was to me, her posture small but resolute. I sighed and followed her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I watched Laura as she slept beside me. Her breathing was light and even. Moonlight filtered through a crack in the curtains, illuminating her face. Her skin was so fine it barely looked real. Her features were delicate, flawless. I used to think she was just naturally beautiful. But now, I reached out, wanting to touch her cheek. Just as my fingers were about to make contact, she suddenly rolled over. I snatched my hand back, my heart pounding. She hadn't woken up. She was curled into a ball, as if protecting herself. The pose was strikingly similar to how Jade coiled up. The thought scared me. But once the connection was made, I couldn't stop it. Her body temperature, her diet, her fear of the sun, her fear of snakes, and her jealousy of Jade. It all made sense. If she was a snake spirit, why marry me? Those words said she was afraid I couldn't handle it. So she acted cold. Could that be it? I thought back to when we were first married. She wasn't like this. She would be playful, get angry, even get jealous. When did she change? It was right around the time I got Jade. I was stressed at work, and keeping a snake was relaxing. At first, Laura just disliked it. Then she grew more and more silent. I thought she hated snakes. But looking back now, was she afraid of revealing herself? The more I thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. Those words, maybe they were some kind of hint. Maybe it was fate giving me a chance to save our marriage. I decided to test her one more time. The next day was Saturday. I got up early and went to the farmer's market to buy a live fish. Laura never ate anything that was killed in front of her. She said it was cruel. I'd always humored her and bought pre-cleaned fillets. Today, I deliberately bought a whole live trout. When I got home, Laura was watering the plants. She frowned when she saw the fish. "Why did you buy it live?" "It's fresher," I said, putting the fish in the sink. "You want to clean it?" She took a step back. "You do it. I'm not very good at that." Her eyes avoided mine. It hit me then. For a spirit, taking a life, even a fish's, might be difficult. While I cleaned the fish, I watched her out of the corner of my eye. She was standing in the sunroom, her back to the kitchen. Her shoulders were tense, like she was enduring something. At lunch, I made pan-seared trout. Laura only ate the side dishes, leaving the fish untouched. "You don't like it?" I asked. "I'm not very hungry," she said, putting down her fork. "You have it." I looked at her and said casually, "I hear snakes really like to eat fish." Clang! Laura knocked over her water glass. Water spilled across the table, and she frantically tried to wipe it up. Her movements were clumsy, and the tips of her ears were bright red. Sorry." I handed her a napkin, my heart settling on a conclusion. Those words were real. Laura was a snake spirit. Jade was one of her kind. She was jealous because I was close to another snake. She was distant because she was afraid of revealing her identity. The realization left me with a complex mix of feelings. Shock, absurdity, but mostly relief. It meant she did not love me. She was just too scared to love me. That afternoon, I said I had to go to the office just to get out of the house and clear my head. I needed time to process this. My wife is a snake spirit. What do I do? Call the police? Find a priest? No. I couldn't bear the thought. 3 years of marriage. The feelings weren't fake. Besides, she had never hurt me. On the contrary, she was a gentle, caring, and good wife. So what if she was a spirit? She was better than a lot of humans. Once I'd made peace with it, I went home. Laura was on the sofa reading a book, looking serene. Sunlight streamed through the window, framing her in a golden glow. She was ethereally beautiful. I walked over and sat down beside her. "Laura, we need to talk." She put her book down, her expression calm. "About what?" "About you," I said, looking into her eyes. "About your secret." Her pupils contracted slightly. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." I took her hand. It was cold. "Whatever you are, I'll accept it." She trembled and tried to pull her hand away. I held on tighter. "I know you're scared," I said softly, "but I'm not." She looked up, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Coley, Jade is one of your kind, isn't she?" I asked directly. Her eyes widened, and her face went white. "You, how did you?" "I know." I cut her off. "And I know you've been distant, because you were afraid I'd find out." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I am sorry. I didn't mean to lie to you." I wiped her tears away with my thumb. "I'm the one who should be sorry for making you carry this alone for so long." She threw herself into my arms and began to sob, as if releasing 3 years of pent-up fear and loneliness. I held her, my heart aching with tenderness. I never knew that beneath that perfect mask, she was so fragile. When she finally cried herself out, she looked up at me, her voice small. "You're really not afraid of me?" I smiled. "What's to be afraid of? You're not going to eat me, are you?" She let out a choked laugh. "Actually, I'm a green snake spirit. It took me 500 years of cultivation before I could take human form." She began to tell me everything. The supernatural world had rules. You couldn't just reveal your identity to humans. She had planned to continue her cultivation deep in the mountains, but she had met me by chance. It was love at first sight, and she couldn't stop herself from getting close. After we got married, she lived in constant fear that I'd find out. Then I brought Jade home. The presence of another of her kind terrified her. She was afraid Jade would sense what she was, and she was afraid I'd like Jade more than her. That's why she grew so distant. "You idiot," I said, stroking her hair. "How could I ever love a snake more than I love you?" She blushed. "We snake spirits. We have low body temperatures, cold blood, and we can't have children. Can you accept all that?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "I love you, not what you are." She looked at me, her eyes shining with emotion. "Actually, I can regulate my body temperature. I was just afraid you wouldn't be used to it." As she spoke, her hand in mine gradually grew warmer. until it felt just like a normal person's. See? Is that better? I squeeze her hand and smile. Yeah, much better. The last of my doubts melted away. So what if she was a spirit? As long as our love was real, that was enough. That night, for the first time, we held each other like a real couple. No distance, no masks. Just honesty and warmth. I woke up in the middle of the night and realized Laura wasn't in bed. I got up and found her on the sunroom balcony. In the moonlight, she was facing Jade's terrarium. Jade had her head out, her tongue flicking the air. Laura reached out and gently touched her head. Jade rubbed against her finger affectionately. Then I saw something incredible. A faint, green light shimmered around Laura's body, and for a split second, her pupils turned into vertical slits. It was gone in an instant. She turned, saw me, and froze. Did I wake you? I walked over and wrapped my arms around her waist. Chatting with Jade? She leaned back against me. She's my cousin. Her cultivation is still weak, so she can't take human form yet. I looked at Jade. Jade looked back at me, her eyes intelligent, almost as if she were smiling. You don't have to hide from her anymore, I said, kissing the top of Laura's head. We can take care of her together. Laura looked up at me, her eyes full of starlight. Thank you, Cole. I smiled. What for? I was the one who should be thankful. Thankful for those crazy floating words that stopped me from losing her. The next day, I shredded the divorce papers. The machine word, sounding like a celebration of our new beginning. Laura was in the kitchen, humming a song as she cooked. The sun was bright, and life was good. Of course, I never told her how I really found out her secret. I just said I sensed something was wrong and pressed her for the truth. She believed me. The floating words never appeared again. Maybe it was just some passing deity doing a good deed. Who knows? What mattered was that we were finally, truly together. After learning Laura's secret, our life changed in subtle ways. Most noticeably, she no longer kept me at arm's length. She'd wake me up by nuzzling my chin like a cat, and her skin wasn't so cold anymore. A result of her regulating her spiritual energy, she said, to make me more comfortable. She started trying warmer foods, and while she still preferred salads, she no longer shied away from the steak I'd grill. Even with Jade, she let her guard down. One weekend, as we cleaned the terrarium together, Laura gently tapped Jade on the head. The little snake wound around her wrist, flicking her tongue affectionately. She says thank you for taking care of her. Laura translated with a smile. I was stunned. You can understand her? Supernatural beings have a kind of connection, she explained. Like your human intuition. So you can talk to all snakes? Theoretically, yes, but there are barriers between different species. She paused, lowering her voice. Like different human languages. The analogy made me laugh. The supernatural world sounded pretty complex. As the days passed, I grew accustomed to my wife being a snake spirit. I even started to see the perks. In the summer, her naturally cool body was like a personal air conditioner. Her sense of smell was so sharp she could tell if milk was about to go bad a day in advance. And her intuition was scarily accurate, helping me dodge a couple of bad investment ideas. Of course, there are awkward moments. A relative once brought over a live fish as a gift. When Laura saw it thrashing in the bag, she went pale and excused herself to the bedroom, claiming she felt sick. I quickly dealt with the fish and apologized to her later. It's okay, she said, curled against me. I'm still not used to it. In the mountains, the circle of life was just a fact. But after living among humans for so long, I've gotten soft. I held her tighter. Being soft is a good thing. It means you're becoming more human. She looked up at me. Do you want me to be more human? I shook my head. I want you to be yourself. Spirit, human, whatever, it's all you. Her eyes reddened, and she hugged me fiercely. As we grew closer, some of her true nature started to peek through. She loved warm spots, but hated direct sunlight, a classic reptilian trait. Her reflexes were incredible. Once, she yanked me out of the way of a falling flower pot with impossible speed. Occasionally, when she got excited, her pupils would flash into vertical slits for a second before returning to normal. These little quirks only made her more real, more endearing to me. But our peaceful life wasn't to last. One weekend, we took Jade to the vet for a checkup. Even though Laura insisted she was healthy, I was a firm believer in modern pet care. The vet was an experienced middle-aged man. As he examined Jade, His expression grew serious. This snake, she's special, he said, adjusting his glasses. The species is a garter snake, but her vitals are a little unusual. My stomach tightened. I glanced at Laura. Her face was a calm mask, but I saw her fingers tremble. How so? I asked. Hard to say. The vet shook his head. She just seems too intelligent, like she understands what we're saying. As if on cue, Jade flicked her tongue, her eyes looking impossibly innocent. The vet chuckled. See? Right now, it's like she's saying, duh, of course I'm smart. I relaxed, thinking it was a false alarm. But as we were leaving, the vet called out to Laura, Ma'am, are you a snake expert yourself? Laura froze. Why do you ask? You have a certain scent about you, the vet said, leaning closer, like one of the family. The air in the room turned to ice. Laura went rigid. I immediately stepped in front of her. You must be joking, Doc. My wife is terrified of snakes. The vet gave us a long, thoughtful look, but didn't press the issue. On the way home, Laura was silent. It wasn't until we were inside our apartment that she spoke. That vet isn't a simple man. I nodded. Does he keep snakes too? No, Laura said, her expression grave. He has a supernatural aura. Faint, but it's there. He might be a half-blood, or someone who deals with our kind frequently. Oh, could I feel it? I asked, surprised. A normal human couldn't, she said, taking my hand. But you need to be careful. Our world has rules about revealing ourselves to humans. If we run into someone who knows what to look for, it could mean trouble. A knot of dread formed in my gut. Are we in danger? Probably not, she reassured me. Most of us just want to live quiet lives, like me. But there are always exceptions. She didn't finish, but I understood. Where there were spirits, there were politics. For the next few days, we avoided that pet hospital. Laura became even more careful about hiding her aura, even limiting her interactions with Jade. But you can't outrun fate. A week later, I came home from work to find someone waiting at her door. It was the vet. He was in street clothes, a friendly smile on his face that didn't reach his sharp eyes. Mr. Davis, sorry to bother you. Can I help you? I asked on my guard. It's about your snake. He lowered his voice, and the snake's spirit. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I forced myself to stay calm. I don't know what you're talking about. He chuckled. Don't be nervous. I don't mean any harm. I just needed to confirm. He gestured to the door. Aren't you going to invite me in? As I hesitated, the door opened. Laura stood there, her face a cold mask. If you have something to say it to me. The vet's eyes lit up when he saw her. So, it is you. Laura told me to go inside while she and the vet spoke on the doorstep. I pressed my ear to the door, catching fragments of words like rules, seclusion, and live and let live. Half an hour later, Laura came back inside. Her expression softened. Is it handled? I asked. For now, she sighed. He's a sort of liaison for the supernatural community, assigned to monitor for unusual energy signatures in the city. When you and I became closer, my aura flared up, and he detected it. Is he going to report you? I asked anxiously. No, Laura shook her head. He's like me, a spirit who prefers the human world. As long as we don't cause any trouble, he's willing to keep our secret. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding, but a sense of unease remained. Having a supernatural watchdog nearby felt like living with a time bomb. Laura saw my worry and squeezed my hand. Don't worry, I'll be more careful. And she gave a small smile. He said my aura is pure, that I follow a righteous path. As long as I don't hurt anyone, the council won't interfere. I pulled her into a hug. That's good. But the incident made me realize that our marriage might face challenges I'd never imagined. A spirit and a human. It was never going to be simple. That night, I asked Laura, do you regret marrying me? She shook her head. Never. But I know I've brought you trouble. It's not trouble, I said, kissing her. It's our story. She smiled, her eyes full of warmth. But the smile didn't quite reach them. I knew something was still bothering her. After some gentle prodding, she finally told me. Spirits live for a very long time, Cole. But humans, your lives are over in a flash. I froze. It was a problem I hadn't even considered. I've cultivated for 500 years, and I have at least 1,000 more to go. But you... Her voice cracked. I'll only have you for a few decades. I was silent. It was an insurmountable gap. The long-lived and the fleeting. Was it destined to be a tragedy? It's okay, I said, forcing a smile. A few decades with you is better than a lifetime without you. She buried her face in my chest and wept. That night, we held each other as if to memorize every second. The next day, I secretly started researching myths about spirits, legends of immortality. But reality was cruel. A human lifespan is finite. It's the law of nature. Unless I could learn to cultivate spiritual energy myself. The thought was so absurd, I quickly dismissed it. I decided to just live in the moment, to cherish the time we had. Life returned to a peaceful rhythm. The vet never showed up again. Laura treasured our time together more than ever. She learned to cook my favorite dishes, the hot, savory ones. She'd stay up with me when I worked late, using a sliver of her power to help keep me focused. Though I forbade her from overusing it, afraid she'd hurt herself. She even started learning to dance, saying she wanted to share one perfect dance with me. Everything seemed beautiful, but the shadow of mortality was always there. Until one rainy night, I came down with a fever, a bad one. Laura tried everything, cool cloths, medicine, but my temperature wouldn't break. We have to go to the hospital, she said, her voice frantic. It's pouring out. I mumbled, half delirious. I'll be fine after some sleep. She wouldn't hear of it, insisting she'd carry me there. Looking at her slender frame, I managed a weak laugh. You think you can carry me? The next second, my jaw dropped. A faint green light enveloped Laura, and with a surge of impossible strength, she lifted me into her arms as if I weighed nothing. My power can temporarily strengthen my body, she explained, her breath coming in short pants. But it won't last long. We have to hurry. She ran through the rain-swept streets, carrying me. The rain soaked her hair, but her embrace was warm and strong. Though I was lost in a feverish haze, I could feel her heart pounding against my chest, fast, strong, and full of fear for me. At the ER, the doctor said it was a severe flu and started me on M4. Laura stayed by my side all night, never leaving for a moment. When I woke up the next morning, the fever was gone. I saw her slumped in the chair beside my bed, asleep. Her face was pale, with dark circles under her eyes. She had clearly exhausted herself. My heart ached as I reached out to stroke her hair. She woke with a start, her first instinct to check my forehead. The fever's gone, she breathed, a tired smile spreading across her face. You work too hard, I said, taking her hand. Don't ever use your power like that again. It's not good for you. She shook her head. You're more important. In that moment, I made a promise to myself. No matter what it took, I was going to find a way to be with her for longer, even if it meant defying fate itself. After I was discharged, I started exercising and eating healthier. Laura teased me for suddenly becoming so health conscious. I didn't tell her the real reason. I just wanted one more day with her, and then one more after that. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. A month later, I was in a car accident. I shoved a little kid out of the way of a speeding car and took the hit myself. The last thing I saw before I blacked out was Laura's terrified face and a blinding green light erupting from her body. I woke up in a hospital bed. Pain radiated through my entire body, but my mind was clear. Laura was by my side, her eyes red and swollen, her face as white as the sheets. You're awake, she cried, lunging forward, her voice hoarse. You scare me to death. I tried to lift my hand to touch her face, but a sharp pain made me gasp. Don't move, she said, gently holding me down. You have broken ribs and a fractured leg. You need a rest. I nodded, remembering the moments before I passed out. The kid, he's fine. You saved him. He just has a few scrapes, she said, her grip on my hand tightening. Why were you so reckless? I smiled. Couldn't just stand by and watch. She glared at me, but her eyes were filled with love and pain. When the doctor came, he said I was lucky. The injuries weren't life-threatening. A few months of recovery, and I'd be fine. I was relieved, but then I remembered the green light. Laura, when I was unconscious, I think I saw you glowing. Laura's body went stiff, her eyes flickering away. You must have been seeing things. The streetlights, maybe. I stared at her, knowing she was lying. But I didn't push it. That night, I sent her to get me some soup from the cafeteria. The moment she was gone, I called my buddy, Mark, who had been at the scene. Mark, when I was out, did you see anything? Weird. He hesitated. You're not going to believe this, man. But your wife ran over like a lightning bolt. And then this green light flared up around you. And the bleeding, it just stopped. A shock went through me. It wasn't a hallucination. Laura had used her power to save me. After I hung up, my mind was racing. What was the cost of using her power to save a human life? Would her world find out? Just then, Laura returned with the soup. I looked at her closely. She looked even worse than before, her steps unsteady. Laura, tell me the truth, I said, taking her hand. You used your power to save me, didn't you? Her hand trembled, nearly spilling the bowl. Don't lie to me, I said, my voice firm. She looked down, admitting it with her silence. Using spiritual power to reverse fate. It damages your own cultivation, she said softly. But I have no regrets. Tears welled in my eyes. You foolish girl. You're the fool, she said, looking up, tears of her own falling. Nearly getting yourself killed for a stranger. I pulled her into a hug, my heart filled with both gratitude and fear. Damaging her cultivation. Would it affect her lifespan? She seemed to read my mind. It's okay. My foundation is strong. I lost a little, but I can get it back. But I knew she was lying again. Over the next few days, she was noticeably weaker. Sometimes her true nature would slip. Her pupils would go vertical, or her body temperature would plummet without warning. It broke my heart to see her like that, but there was nothing I could do. All I could do was focus on getting better, so she wouldn't have to worry. During my hospital stay, the vet came to visit once. While Laura was out of the room, he spoke to me in a low voice. Your wife broke the rules for you. I eyed him warily. What do you want? Relax, he said with a small smile. I'm just giving you a heads up. Intervening in fate like that draws attention. You two should be careful. Thanks, I said, then hesitated. The damage to her cultivation. How bad is it? The vet sighed. Equivalent to 100 years of practice. But her foundation is strong. With a few years of rest, she should recover. 100 years. The words were like a knife in my heart. She had paid such a heavy price for me. After the vet left, I felt a heavy weight on my soul. When Laura returned and saw my expression, she asked, "What's wrong? Is the pain bad?" I shook my head and took her hand. Laura, promise me you'll never risk yourself for me again. She froze, then realized I knew. You're more important, she repeated, her gaze unwavering. I sighed. I knew I couldn't change her mind. After I got out of the hospital, Laura took care of me tirelessly. She quit her job to focus on my recovery. During that time, I noticed she was becoming more human. She started feeling the cold and needing sweaters. She got tired more easily. Her appetite even changed, and she started craving hot food. I asked her if it was a side effect of her weakened power. She nodded. With my spiritual energy diminished, my human side is stronger. I'm not that different from a normal woman now. I didn't know how to feel about that. Was it good or bad for her? But she seemed to be enjoying the change. I was always so afraid of being discovered, she said with a smile. Now I feel free. I can finally experience what it's really like to be human. Seeing her so happy brought me some comfort. Maybe it was a blessing in disguise. 3 months later, I was mostly healed. I went back to work, and life returned to its normal rhythm. But Laura didn't look for a new job. She said she wanted to take a break, and I supported her completely. She deserved it. One weekend, we took Jade to the park. Laura, who now enjoyed the sun, sat beside me on the grass. Jade slithered around, attracting a small crowd of curious children. Laura watched, smiling, no longer afraid. A little girl asked her, "Aren't you scared of the snake lady?" Laura gently patted the girl's head. "Not all. She's a good friend." The girl reached out to touch Jade, but her mother stopped her. "It's okay," Laura said softly. "She doesn't bite." The mother was skeptical, but relented when she saw how gentle Jade was. The little girl giggled as she stroked Jade's smooth scales. Laura's smile was radiant. Watching them, my heart felt full. Maybe the gap between spirits and humans could be bridged with a little understanding. That night, Laura made a feast to celebrate my full recovery. In the candlelight, her cheeks were flushed with color. She looked healthier than she had in months. "Laura, has your power returned?" I asked. She nodded. "Mostly, but I don't want to go back to how I was." "Why not?" I asked, surprised. "I like this," she said, putting a piece of chicken on my plate. "Being more like you. It means I can grow old with you." I understood. She was choosing to give up part of her power, to become more human, just so our timelines would match. You foolish girl. I choked out. You're the fool, she laughed. Risking your life for a stranger. We looked at each other and smiled through our tears. After dinner, we stood on the balcony, watching the city lights twinkle like a fallen sky. Cole, Laura said softly, I want to grow old and gray with you. I held her tighter. Okay, whatever the future held, this moment was eternal. But our peace was broken again. A few days later, I received an anonymous package. Inside was an ancient-looking book and a note. The note read, a way for spirits to become human and for humans to live longer. The book's yellowed pages detailed the cultivation methods of spirits. A corner was folded on a chapter titled The Symbiotic Art. The text was archaic, but the gist was that a spirit and a human could form a pact to share their lifespans. The price was half of the spirit's power. My heart pounded. Was this our chance, but half her power? The cost was too great. That night, I broached the subject carefully. If there was a way for me to be with you longer, but it required a great sacrifice from you, would you do it? Laura answered without hesitation. Yes, anything. My heart ached with love for her. What if it cost you centuries of your cultivation? She froze, then understood. You found out about the symbiotic art. I was shocked. You knew about it? She nodded. It's forbidden in the supernatural world. The price is too high, and it rarely succeeds. But I've researched it. She had been thinking about it all along. Why didn't you tell me? I was afraid you wouldn't agree, she whispered against my chest. And I was afraid it would fail and only give you false hope. I held her tight. Let's do it. Success or failure. We'll face it together. She looked up, her eyes shining. Okay. We decided to attempt the ritual. It required rare materials and a place of absolute tranquility. Laura said the best place would be the deep mountain forest where she used to cultivate. The spiritual energy there was pure and strong. I took a week of vacation, and we drove out to the wilderness. We brought Jade with us. Laura said she could help act as a guardian during the ritual. The forest was remote, untouched by civilization. Laura led me to a hidden cave. Inside, it was simple but clean, with a stone bed and table, as if someone had lived there. This was my home before I took human form, Laura said, a nostalgic look on her face. As night fell, we began our preparations, arranging the materials in a complex array on the cave floor. Moonlight streamed in, illuminating the center of the circle. Laura had me sit in the middle. A green light flickered around her, her pupils turning to slits. This might hurt, she warned. I nodded. I can take it. The ritual began. As Laura chanted, the array glowed. A powerful energy surged into my body, warm but forceful, as if it were remaking me from the inside out. An intense pain shot through me, but I gritted my teeth and endured it. Laura's face was pale, sweat beading on her forehead. She was paying her price. After what felt like an eternity, the pain subsided. I felt lighter, stronger, like I'd shed 10 years. But Laura collapsed, her aura faint. Laura, I cried, catching her. She gave me a weak smile. It worked. We share a life now. You'll live for 300 years. And so will I. 300 years. Short for a spirit, an eternity for a human. But for us, it was perfect. Was it worth it? I asked, my voice thick with emotion. Worth it, she whispered, leaning against me. Every day with you is worth it. We stayed like that until the sun rose. Back home, our lives continued. We looked like any other couple, but I knew we now had the gift of time. Time to grow old together, to see the world. Of course, that was the big picture. The immediate problem was that Jade seemed jealous. Ever since the ritual, she was constantly coiled around Laura, hissing at me if I got too close. Laura laughed. She thinks my aura is weak, so she's protecting me. She's acting like a spoiled kid. I grumbled. Laura stroked Jade's head. She basically is a kid. Jade rubbed against her hand, giving me a triumphant look. I had a laugh, getting into a rivalry with a snake. I was being pretty childish myself, but this was our life, full of love, laughter, and small troubles. It was real and it was warm. As for the future, whatever came, we'd face it, as long as we were together. After the symbiotic art, my body was noticeably different. I could run a mile without breaking a sweat, My eyesight was perfect and I never got sick. My coworkers joked that I'd found the fountain of youth. I just laughed and said it was a new diet. Laura, on the other hand, became completely human. She enjoyed a good TV binge, online shopping sprees, and spicy hot pot that made her eyes water. It was a joy to watch. Jade was still my rival for Laura's attention, but she was friendlier, and Laura said she was close to gaining enough spiritual power to take human form. But the question of who sent the ancient books still lingered. The answer arrived on a rainy night in the form of an old man in traditional robes. He was an elder from the supernatural world. Laura's face went pale. "Elder, you broke the law, binding yourself to a human," he said, his voice like stone. "It was my idea," I said, stepping in front of her. "Punish me." The elder looked at me, his eyes seeming to see into my soul. "The consequences are dire. We know. We accept them." He was silent for a long time. "Your selfless act of saving the human child has earned you a great deal of merit," he said finally. A vision of the car accident appeared in the air between us. "For that reason, the council will overlook this transgression." We were flooded with relief. "But," the elder continued, "there are conditions. You must never abuse your power, never reveal your identities, and never interfere with human fate." We readily agreed. "One more thing. The young spirit," he said, gesturing to Jade's terrarium, "must be brought back for proper training." It was hard to say goodbye, but we knew it was for the best. Jade slithered up my arm and nuzzled my cheek before the elder waved his sleeve, and she vanished. "She will return in 3 years, once she can take human form," he said, before disappearing into the rain. The next 3 years flew by. Our lives were blissfully normal. We traveled. We celebrated anniversaries. We even had small arguments that always ended in laughter. Laura was fully human now, emotional and vibrant. It was everything I had ever wanted. Then came the biggest surprise of all. Laura was pregnant. It was supposed to be impossible, but the doctor confirmed it. A healthy baby was on the way. We were overjoyed and terrified. Laura said she could feel a faint spiritual aura from the baby, a perfect mix of human and spirit. "No matter what, this is our child," she said. On the 6th month of her pregnancy, another anonymous letter arrived. It read, "On the day of the child's birth, Jade will return." The day finally came. I was pacing nervously outside the delivery room when a flash of green light came from inside, followed by a doctor's surprise shout. I burst in to see Laura holding a perfect baby boy. He looked just like me, except for a tiny, scale-shaped green birthmark on his forehead. "He looks like you," Laura whispered, her voice tired but happy. Just then, a voice came from the doorway. "Looks like I got here just in time." A handsome young man in a green shirt stood there, a familiar green mark on his own forehead. "Jade," Laura gasped. He nodded. "I passed my trials. The council sent me back to fulfill a promise." He walked over and gently touched the baby's cheek. The infant opened his eyes, and for a fleeting moment, his pupils were vertical slits. "He has spirit blood, but a kind heart," Jade smiled. "I will protect him as he grows." We looked at each other, our hearts full. It was all part of a grander plan. At our son's first-month celebration, the vet came. He confessed that it was he who had sent the book. "Why?" I asked. He smiled. "Because you two made me believe that love between a spirit and a human could truly work." As the party wound down, we saw a flash of green light outside, like a shooting star. We knew it was a blessing from their world. That night, after putting our son to bed, Laura and I stood on the balcony, watching the moon. "Cole," she said, leaning her head on my shoulder, "thank you for not giving up on me." I held her close. "Thank you for sharing your life with me." We smiled at each other. The future was long, but as long as we had each other, we weren't afraid. End.